Hi, this is Alan Shea with our Society Show, and we are here at Kibulon in Pasadena at an incredible event where we're going to talk about health, mental health, and what causes it, what perpetuates it, and what steps the community can take to really address it, especially with its leaders. I have some guests here who have come a long way, and I am proud to bring him into the fold of Pasadena and some of Pasadena's community engagement. He's going to share his name with you, and why don't you let him know how far you came tonight?
My name is Kaijan Derrick. I came from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And why don't you share your age and go into what you thought of tonight's discussion?
I just turned 15 years old. I loved the discussion and how engaged we were. I think it's very important that we identify issues even in our own community and establish them and know how to move forward. I feel like it's very important that before we can change others, we change ourselves and know that we're in the right place. And yeah.
Right. And we need every sense. We utilize every sense that we have. We utilize our touch. We utilize our smell. We utilize our vision. We utilize our sound. We utilize our mouths when we are going through the healing process. And what happens is sometimes all these things, as you can see, they become so blurred we don't know what to do. That's what it is. And it leaves us feeling guess out. No. But they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And so that's what makes being able to give ourselves permission to try to sort some of this stuff out the way that we need to do it. There's not a timetable to it. Your journey is your journey. And your journey, the impact that the grief or loss has is directly correlated to the relationship we held with that loss. So for example, the loss of my coworker may impact me. It's not going to impact me like it does my mom. If I lost my mom, right? And then the relationship that you have with it, whatever label that loss held, you now have to redefine who you are without that labeling. So if I was married to my spouse for, say I'm the first lady of the church, right? My husband is a pastor, and I've been married to him for 35 years, and I was charge of the mother's board, and I was the pastor's wife, and I was, known as first lady, and I was in charge of women's ministry, and I was all the time. I still those things. Do those labels still carry the same weight? Probably not. Now I have to redefine who I am because I deserve to give that to myself so that I can continue to maintain my mental health. Because I'm looking at how I'll never have a complete full pie again. But I've got to give myself the opportunity to continue to live intentionally and with purpose because I owe it to myself and I owe it to the loss that I am now living to honor by how I live. Right?
So as a 15-year-old incredible gentleman who has a huge life ahead of him, he's very intelligent. That's what I like about this young guy. Why don't you share with the viewers what you can take from this and apply it to your day-to-day life, as well as what you've now seen in a black community and what you heard takes place, because I'm sure it's a lot different than the community you come out of, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I think that hearing this from a fellow black community, back in Milwaukee, the school I go to isn't that black populated, so I'm often around other, white people and whatnot. So I think hearing it from other black people and hearing how their thought process works and hearing how I can educate others in ways that I can go about certain situations was very helpful in how I can educate my peers and the people that I am around constantly in Wisconsin.
In order for you to address it, don't wait until it happens to you. We can be out here going to the schools. What happened to it takes a village to raise a child? This is my granddaughter. Her mother was killed. My granddaughter's been getting grief counseling since the second week my daughter was killed. I think mental health is very important because kids hold things in. We don't know. People can't afford it, and in the black, and I'm not just gonna say just the black community, black and brown, because we're the minorities. In our communities, we don't know about the different services that when you lose, well, not lose, because I take that back, my daughter was taken. When your loved one is taken, victim services, they pay for counseling, they pay for so many things, but we don't know about that. All we know about is, oh, they're gonna pay for the funeral and I'm gonna spend all this money on a funeral. Well, what about the people that have been left? We don't, and even in the black community, we don't speak about insurance. People wanna go and, like Dr. Clark said, they wanna spend all this money on all this and then they wanna do a fish fry. No, we need to address that. But we need to get these children when they're young, and we need to see what's going on with them. They may not want to talk to, there may be things going on at home. And that's when they need to have somebody that they can talk to. Once they leave elementary, junior high, high school, because the streets are getting them. The reason why we have people out here doing these killings is because there was issues that weren't addressed as children. They seen things in the home.
I know when we spoke earlier, you said that there was a couple of things you would have liked to have brought up. Why don't you share that with the viewers so maybe we can get some answers on those?
Well, it would have been like bouncing off of the conversation that we were having. I just think that saying what they were saying, basically, it's important that we ourselves know, like, establish problems in our community, and also it was said earlier that maybe rioting or having protesting wasn't the most efficient way. Also, understanding the grief that others are facing and how they deal with that themselves. Putting yourself in that situation can alter your perspective on the situation itself. So I think it's very important that we are taking into consideration others' grief and how they process their own situations, because it's different for everyone.
As Cortland said, we're all different, okay? Therefore, that means that we're all dealing with a need for wellness. Right. Mental health is an issue, like you said, is the result of, but the wellness element is not out there. Right. And in the case of what you were saying about us coming together, we can't come together if we don't understand what we're coming together for. We have, like I use this analogy, that we've gotten to the point where we believe the lie. The lie is that, oh, it just happened, he's not the first one, she's not the first one, whatever the case may be. Because with the Anthony McLean situation, yes, there was some uprising and so forth, but look at where we came from. We've had Watts riots, we have had so many upheavals across this country. But look at us now. Is anything going on where we're, wanting to march and anything now? The issue is still there. It's still there. But we have those masks on that says, it happened last week, it's going to happen again. We individually have to come together and say, enough is enough. And as far as wellness is concerned, I applaud you, because I think that it's something that, and I have, just sitting here, realizing that I was becoming one of those sit back and say, oh, they'll handle it. No, but we really need to get out there and make that a topic of conversation, make it a topic and an issue. Not only in our schools, in our churches, wherever there are groups of people, so that when an issue does arise, we will know what we're dealing with. It's not to burn down your city. Right. It's to get a clear understanding that enough is enough.
Well, here's $1 million question, so if this gentleman can give some real clarity on this, I think it's going to help us a lot going forward. As a 15-year-old in today's society, which is the tech society, and you guys are, what is it, Gen Z generation, why don't you kind of share with us how your generation receives these type of social challenges, and do you and your peers really have any concerns or thoughts, or have you seen any type of implementation toward this? And I know there's a big question, but the reason why, I like to put them in this format is because it gives you a chance to really think through it, because you're a very intelligent young man, and you'll look back on this footage in 20 years and say, wow, I can't believe I said that.
Well, I myself am taking responsibilities on and making sure that my community is well educated in Wisconsin. But I also believe that Gen Z is they're not afraid to speak their mind and state their problems that are going on. But it's often, you can tell that often many people don't really engage as well in situations that don't have anything to do with them. So if it's not concerning them or hasn't affected them directly, then their urgency to deal with the situation isn't as grave as, say, it has to do with them directly or affected their family, for example. So I just think that it's our generation's very we can speak up about certain things, but taking action is the real problem, and taking action is what we need to start doing in the younger generation, because if we don't do it, who will?
There's something in the social work field called trauma-informed care. I deal with that every day because I work with the homeless. You have to meet, as Dr. Clark said, you have to meet people where they are. They have to be able to trust you. They have to be able to feel safe. It's a whole lot of things that come with it, but we can't just say, okay, let's do it. No, we need to start getting involved before it happens. We have to get involved before it happens. Stop being afraid of, someone being upset because you address their child. You go to them. They may not receive it, but you have to keep at it, or find someone that will be able to understand them or be able to get to that person. But you have to get involved before it happens. Don't wait till you're a parent of a murder victim and then you're out here in these streets. So I say again, don't wait until it happens. Mental health is important. If you've lost a loved one, no matter how it happens, yes, death is inevitable. However, our experiences are all different. I may have lost my daughter one way, somebody else may have lost their child to murder, but our experiences are totally different. And that's what we need to understand, but we need to come together as a community. So it does take a village.
I'm going to close on this because we are celebrating Black History Month. And we heard a lot of history here in Pasadena, and we got a lot of information. What would you like to see in Black History Month in 2043? That will be your gift in a bottle that you will open up in 20 years.
2043, what I want to say in Black History Month, I want to see more inclusion. I want to see a greater diversity and celebration in what is being talked about. I don't want to see a group of Black people talking about Black history. I want to see every type of race, diversity, nationality, ethnicity. I want to see inclusion in community forming. And I don't want Black history to seem like a pity party or something that you should feel bad about. I want it to be something that can be uplifting and that can show how far we've come and how far we will go.
Wow. And it's for mankind, not just any one particular color. It tends to happen to us more often because of a historical process that has led up to certain things. But it's for mankind totally,
I was just going to make a comment. I lost 3 brothers, and one when I was 9, one when I was 10, and one when I was 18. And just thinking about all that we talked about tonight, I got into therapy when my mom had Alzheimer's before she passed. And I remember we were just talking, and the doctor was just talking, and something he said to me, I never thought of it, but he said that was, you know, that's some serious trauma. And in my mind, when I thought of trauma, I'm thinking of the emergency room, right? And I didn't think of it as a mental trauma, like, you know, and so as a kid, I just wanted my parents to be okay, you know? I just wanted my mom to be okay. I wanted my dad to be okay. I wanted our family to stay together, you know what I'm saying? But, so I tried to, you know, that's what my focus was, but now that I'm an adult, you know, I still don't handle trauma probably correctly. I'm worried about my kids, I'm worried about my grandkids. I'm not worried about me, but guess who I have to deal with every day? Me. You know, me. So, this is interesting, realizing that is trauma, it is extreme trauma. Someone could be here one minute, gone the next, for whatever reason. Two of my brothers were murdered, one of them overdosed on drugs. It's just interesting how I learned how to survive and how I learned how to cope with it. And I wish I would have gotten mental help, you know, when I was younger, because I think it would be easier for me to deal with losing my husband, losing my parents. It would have been easier for me to deal with it because I resort to what I did when I was a kid.
What's Phil say?
Yeah.
You go back to what Phil said.
Yeah.
And each loss deserves its own
Yes.
space for
Yes.
me to grieve.
Yes.
And they happen so fast, sometimes we don't even get that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So again, we're done feeling like now what do I do? Because everything is running together. And so again, permission is so crucial.
Well, that's great. And the more he's sharing this information with it, the more it excites me because it brings up another issue or question. I love the inclusion, but my question to you is as a student in school, how much does your school curriculum incorporates Black history, and to what extent do you really know Black history?
My school, I brought this up to our principal, teachers. I feel like there isn't really much of any type of like recognition for Black History Month. There's been like, you know, a couple announcements saying, oh, here's the Black scientists of today. I think it's not where it should be. I think that we can do better, and I've been trying to make pave a way for that, you know, by getting our BSU, Black Student Union, more involved with certain things, assemblies and whatnot. As far as my knowledge on Black History Month, I think it's definitely not where it could be. I've talked to Alan previously before, and he's definitely given me a new perspective on how I can consume new information, and that it's definitely possible, and I need to be more open to learning about new things.
And I was putting all this pressure on myself, and I would be so mad at myself that I kept like falling apart.
Right.
And then I was talking to my husband, and I said, you know, my mom never died before. So I don't have a PhD and losing my mom. So for me, I need to just give myself permission to just grieve. I just want to grieve.
Yeah.
She never died before.
And do that.
And I was so glad, I don't even know where that came from, but I was so glad that I was able to articulate that, because a lot of times during grief, it's hard to even explain. I mean, I'm trying to talk, I talk to Rhonda all the time, but trying to articulate how I'm feeling when I feel like I'm in the middle of a tornado and everything's just swirling around me. I can't even keep the right thoughts in my head most of the time.
That's where the title of my book came from. Numb, because I didn't know, and if there was a word that can go beyond numb, that's probably what it would help me. Because you don't know, it's happening so fast. You know, this minute is this minute is that. In the course of a day, there's not enough emotions to be able to describe and put them there.
So in closing tonight, we're going to hear Dr. Clark give us some real sense of inspiration, along with the director, Dr. Lewis.
What's important about emotions is that if you look at the word emotions, what's encapsulated in that word? Emotion. So our emotions are designed to be fluid. They're designed to be moved. But when we don't know what to do with them, we hold them hostage. When they're asking, please let me move. But we don't give ourselves permission to let the emotions and the feelings that we have do what they were designed to do. It doesn't mean that they won't come back again, but now that we've set in that space, it's not such a foreign object to us anymore. It doesn't mean it's going to be easier, but we can get through it a little better than we could.
One of the interesting things that you share, Kai, about Black history, can you repeat that so that Dr. Lewis and Dr. Clark can kind of chime in to close this up about what you would hope to see about Black history and why, and give them a little summary of your Black history in the school you attend?
I just want a greater diversity in the community that recognizes Black history, and more of a recognition of how far we've come and how far we're going to go, instead of feeling bad for what has happened in the past or not really recognizing it as much.
That they don't have to fear police, and that we're all in the community to support them. You know, back in the day, as they used to say, it takes a village.
So based on that conclusion of a 15-year-old, and I asked him to throw out a bottle so he can open it up in 20 years from today for Black history and see if that hope has come to reality, what would you say?
Well, it very well can become reality. There is such a thing called post-traumatic growth, and that is finding the greater possibilities out of traumatic events. And so when we look at where we have been and where we have come and where we are going, that's finding greater possibilities. And it's using what we have to be resilient in the manner of not bouncing back, but bouncing forward. And so it's onward, forward, and we're marching in the right direction.
Without a plan of action, you're doomed. And if we don't get a plan of action to try and get back into the game from experts like yourself and follow up, you know, these kind of stories that Courtney's sharing and some of the other folks here have talked about is just going to be part of our past history.
It's part of the wheel that continues to go around and around.
Absolutely.
So again, I make myself available to have a seat at the table. Right? So I'm available.
What I truly believe is the only way that we're going to be able to make sure Black history is relevant and that it's above board and continues in the schools is that our parents speak up, use their voice, make statements about what they feel is important when it comes to educating their children. I also believe that it should be an intricate part of social studies and history. The curriculum in which the state approves, which is what is sent to the schools. Until that happens, they're going to fiddle-faddle and not see the necessity of teaching Black history.
In celebrating Black History Month, because I firmly believe that if we don't do something about the mental health of our young African-American young people, that we're not going to have history to talk about. They're not going to remember it, they're not going to, because it's not being taught in the schools. I'm trying very hard to get them here to teach them and to work with them. There's not a lot of response from parents. And I've talked to Dr. Clark about us possibly doing something monthly, because mental health for our kids is really falling apart. The kids that were kindergarten during pandemic are now in 3rd grade. They cannot read. And nothing is being done to change that. That's a problem for me. And I want to, the trauma that's going on with our elementary children because of what's going on with us as adults, if we're passing it on to our elementary little kids to the point where they're feeling uncomfortable saying anything to a police officer, and I'm saying we cannot teach our kids to hate or dislike police. They still are who protect us. They are still who we call when we need them. And we have to send that message to our children. We can't not have them marching down the street with us, which is what I saw during the marches that were taking place. I understand the anger about all of the things that go on with our young people, but what they're passing on to elementary, kinder to 8th and 9th grade, their attitude is police will kill you. That's a problem for me. And I don't think that that's a good thing, and I think Dr. Clark has some answers along with Dr. Alexis Abernathy, who I've also consulted about this workshop. I want to bring more to this community because we have to start healing.
Until parents step up, the states step up, I believe that is the only way that we can make change. But I want to thank Dr. Clark for coming into our Kebulon Cultural Center as a part of our Black History Month, because the mental health of our children and our young people is vital, and we have to make changes for the future so that young men like yourself will do well academically and continue to promote and take over, because we are not going to be here forever.
This is Alan Shea with our Society Show. We're closing out tonight's event on an incredible note, and that is to pass the baton to the next generation. And hopefully with the information that he has received tonight from Dr. Clark, from Dr. Lewis, from the community, he certainly can take it to Wisconsin and implement it. So we appreciate you coming out, joining us tonight. This is Alan Shea signing off. Thank you, thank you, thank you.